The air in Madison Square Garden hung heavy with anticipation, a mixture of cigar smoke and collective breath held by 20,000 souls. It was February 1971, and Muhammad Ali stood in the center of the ring, his usually playful eyes now fixed with unusual intensity on Joe Frazier during the referee's instructions. What the crowd didn't know, what no camera could capture, was the moment Ali's perception shifted. In Frazier's unwavering gaze, Ali saw something that sent a chill through his body. Not fear or weakness as he'd expected, but something far more unsettling, a mirror reflection of his own destiny. In that fraction of a second, Ali understood this fight would change everything. "You ready to dance?" Frazier muttered, his voice barely audible above the roaring crowd. Ali, for once, didn't respond with his trademark bravado. Instead, he nodded slightly, his mind racing with the revelation. He had always claimed to see the future of his fights, to predict the round of knockouts with uncanny accuracy. But this vision was different, more profound, more terrifying. He saw not just the outcome of the fight, but a glimpse of both their intertwined legacies. As the bell rang, Ali moved with his characteristic grace, but those closest to his corner noticed something unusual in his expression. Angelo Dundee, his trusted trainer, leaned forward anxiously. This wasn't the Ali he knew. Something had happened in that brief exchange, something that had momentarily stripped away the Louisville Lip's impenetrable confidence. The first round began with Ali establishing his jab, keeping Frazier at bay with his superior reach. But those who had watched every Ali fight could sense a difference. He wasn't taunting, wasn't playing to the crowd. His focus seemed almost otherworldly, as if fighting against not just Frazier, but something only he could perceive. "Work the jab, keep moving," Dundee shouted from the corner as the first round ended. Ali returned to his corner, his breathing measured, but his eyes distant. "What's happening out there?" Dundee whispered, wiping his fighter's face. "He's carrying something, Angie," Ali replied cryptically. "Something bigger than both of us." If you felt something from this story already, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. By the third round, the pattern of the fight was emerging. Frazier, relentless as a freight train, absorbed Ali's punches while constantly pressing forward, looking for opportunities to unleash his devastating left hook. Ali, meanwhile, seemed to be fighting with a strange new strategy, not just to win, but as if trying to validate something only he understood. In his dressing room before the fight, Ali had been unusually quiet. His entourage, accustomed to his pre-fight theatrics and poetry, exchanged worried glances as he sat silently, staring at his gloves. When Herbert Muhammad, his manager, asked if everything was all right, Ali had simply replied, "Tonight isn't about winning or losing, it's about truth." No one understood what he meant then. But as the fight progressed, those words began to take on new meaning. What the world would later call the fight of the century was unfolding not just as a contest of physical prowess, but as something more profound, a collision of two men whose lives would forever be defined by their trilogy of battles, whose names would become inseparable in the annals of sports history. By the end of Chapter 1, Ali had survived Frazier's early onslaught, but the vision he had seen in his opponent's eyes continued to haunt him. This fight was becoming exactly what he had glimpsed in that pre-fight moment, not just a boxing match, but a pivotal moment in history. The middle rounds of the fight saw both men settling into their rhythms. Frazier, hunched and relentless, continued to stalk Ali around the ring, absorbing punishment to deliver his own crushing blows. Ali, still moving with grace but showing signs of fatigue, found himself backed against the ropes more frequently than anyone had ever seen before. Between the 6th and 7th rounds, Bundini Brown, Ali's spiritual advisor and cornerman, leaned in close. "What's happening, champ? This ain't you out there." Ali's eyes cleared momentarily as he focused on Bundini's concerned face. I saw it in his eyes. "Bundini, this fight isn't just about tonight. It's about forever." "What you talking about, champ?" Before Ali could answer, the bell rang for the 7th round. As he rose from his stool, a strange calm settled over him. The revelation that had initially shaken him now seemed to provide clarity. What Muhammad Ali had seen in Joe Frazier's eyes was not just the determination of a worthy opponent, but a recognition that they were bound together by something greater than championship belts or undefeated records. Their paths had converged at this moment in history for reasons that transcended sport. Two black men, at the height of their powers, carrying the weight of their communities, their beliefs, their very identities, into the ring. As the 7th round began, Ali suddenly seemed transformed. He began talking to Frazier in earnest now, not with his usual taunts, but with a strange reverence. "You feel it too, don't you, Joe?" he said, as they clinched. "What we're doing here isn't just for us." Frazier pushed him away roughly. "Shut up and fight," he growled, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of understanding perhaps, that confirmed Ali's insight. The crowd sensed the shift in energy. What had begun as a boxing match was evolving into something that felt almost sacred. Two warriors, evenly matched, pushing each other to limits neither had reached before. In his corner before the 8th round, Ali's team was frantic. He was behind on points, taking more punishment than they'd ever seen him absorb. But Ali seemed strangely at peace. "I need to lose this fight," he whispered to Bundini, so quietly that no one else could hear. "What? Have you lost your mind?" Bundini hissed back. "To become who I'm meant to be," Ali continued. "This has to happen. I saw it. We both have to walk this path." The bell rang, and Ali returned to the center of the ring, carrying with him the weight of his revelation. He fought valiantly, beautifully even, but with a purpose that went beyond simply trying to win. Every punch exchanged between the two men seemed to write another line in a story that would be told for generations. In the crowd, Howard Cosell watched with growing amazement. "There's something extraordinary happening here tonight," he commented to his broadcasting colleague, "something I've never seen in all my years covering this sport." What Ali understood, what he had glimpsed in that pre-fight moment, was that his greatest contribution to history might not come from remaining undefeated. It might come from how he faced adversity, how he responded to defeat, how he and Frazier would push each other to heights neither could reach alone. As the 11th round began, both men were exhausted but unbowed. Their faces were marked by the evidence of their battle, but their eyes remained clear and determined. The crowd was on its feet now, sensing they were witnessing something transcendent. The 13th round of the fight of the century arrived with both men bloodied, but unbowed. Ali's mouth was swollen from Frazier's relentless left hooks, while Frazier's eyes were nearly closed from Ali's precise jabs. Yet neither man showed any sign of surrender. As they moved to the center of the ring, time seemed to slow for Ali. The roar of the crowd faded to a distant hum as he found himself once again locked in Frazier's unwavering gaze. In that moment, the vision he'd had before the fight expanded, becoming clearer, more detailed. He saw not just this fight, but the fights to come. Their trilogy, the thriller in Manila that would push them both to the brink of death. He saw how their rivalry would define them both, how they would be forever linked in the public consciousness. He saw their eventual reconciliation, two warriors who had given everything they had to each other and to their sport. And he saw something else too, how this moment, this very fight, would transform him from a controversial figure into a beloved icon. How losing this battle might help him win a much larger war for hearts and minds. "Keep moving, Muhammad!" Angelo Dundee shouted from the corner, his voice barely penetrating Ali's consciousness. Ali nodded, returning to the present moment. He circled Frazier, throwing combinations that landed with precision but seemed to have little effect on the advancing champion. Frazier, like an unstoppable force of nature, continued to press forward, his left hook cocked and ready. When it came, in the 15th second of the 15th round, the hook landed with devastating precision. Ali felt his legs go weak, his body surrendering before his mind was ready. As he fell to the canvas, the crowd's roar swelled to a deafening crescendo. The count began 1, 2, 3. Through blurred vision, Ali saw Frazier standing in the neutral corner, chest heaving, waiting to see if his greatest rival would rise once more. 4, 5, 6. Ali pushed himself up to one knee, his gloves gripping the canvas. The arena seemed to hold its collective breath. 7, 8. With a supreme effort, Ali pulled himself to his feet. The referee looked into his eyes, checking for signs that the fight should be stopped. What he saw there, what everyone saw, was not defeat, but a strange kind of acceptance. Almost peace. The fight continued, but both men and everyone watching knew the outcome was now inevitable. When the final bell rang, Joe Frazier had handed Muhammad Ali the first defeat of his professional career. As Ali made his way back to his dressing room through a stunned crowd, Howard Cosell managed to get close enough for a question. "Muhammad, you predicted victory. How do you feel about the outcome?" Ali, his face swollen but his eyes clear, responded with words that would echo through history. "Sometimes you have to lose to truly win. What happened tonight isn't the end of anything. It's just the beginning." Back in his dressing room, as his team tended to his injuries, Ali sat in unusual silence. When Bundini finally asked what he had meant by his cryptic comments before and during the fight, Ali simply smiled. "I saw our whole story, Bundini, mine and Joe's. Tonight was just chapter 1. 3 years passed after that fateful night at Madison Square Garden. Years in which the loss to Frazier had indeed transformed Ali's public image in precisely the way he had foreseen. His grace in defeat, his perseverance, his continued fight against injustice outside the ring. All had endeared him to a public that had once been deeply divided in their opinion of him. When they met again in January 1974, Ali defeated Frazier by unanimous decision, setting the stage for a rubber match that would complete the vision Ali had seen in Frazier's eyes that night in 1971. On October 1st, 1975, in the sweltering heat of the Philippine Coliseum in Manila, Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier engaged in what many consider the greatest heavyweight fight of all time. The thriller in Manila pushed both men to the absolute limits of human endurance. Between the 13th and 14th rounds, Ali returned to his corner in a state of complete exhaustion. "Cut him off," he told Dundee, asking for his gloves to be removed so he could quit. "What?" Dundee replied, shocked. "I'm finished," Ali insisted. "This is the closest I've been to death." But before Dundee could make a decision, something remarkable happened across the ring. Eddie Futch, Frazier's trainer, was stopping the fight, unwilling to let his fighter absorb any more punishment. Frazier, nearly blind from swelling and having taken an inhuman amount of punishment, protested vehemently but to no avail. As the referee raised Ali's hand in victory, the newly crowned champion found Frazier's gaze once more across the ring. In that moment, the full circle of Ali's vision was completed. They had pushed each other to heights neither could have reached alone. They had created a trilogy of fights that would be discussed and revered for generations. They had transcended sport to become cultural icons whose significance extended far beyond boxing. Years later, long after both men had retired from the ring, they found themselves at the same charity event in Philadelphia. Ali, his once lightning-fast movements now slowed by Parkinson's disease, made his way across the room to where Frazier sat. The room quieted as these two legendary rivals, whose battles had captivated the world, came face to face once more. "Joe," Ali said, his voice soft but clear, "remember when I looked in your eyes before our first fight?" I saw something there. Frazier, who had carried bitterness about Ali's taunts for many years, looked up with curiosity rather than anger. "What did you see, Muhammad?" "I saw us, our whole story. I saw how we would make each other greater than either of us could be alone." Frazier was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. As Ali took it, the room erupted in applause. What Muhammad Ali had seen in Joe Frazier's eyes that night in Madison Square Garden wasn't just his own defeat. It was a glimpse of how that defeat would ultimately lead to his greatest triumphs, both in and out of the ring. It was the recognition that sometimes the path to greatness requires passing through the valley of defeat. Ali's legacy as the greatest was cemented not by an undefeated record, but by his ability to rise from defeat, to transform himself, to recognize that his greatest opponent was also his greatest gift. And when Muhammad Ali passed away in 2016, among the pallbearers carrying his casket was the son of Joe Frazier, a final testament to the bond that had formed between these two warriors who had given everything they had to each other and to their sport. What Ali saw in Frazier's eyes that night changed not just the fight, but the course of history. It was a moment of perfect clarity that reminded us all that sometimes our greatest adversaries are also our greatest teachers, pushing us to discover depths of courage and resilience we never knew we possessed. If you've made it this far and felt every word, don't leave without subscribing. I tell these stories with my heart in my hand to reach people like you, who feel, who get emotional, who truly live. If this touched you, give back, comment, subscribe. Come be part of this family with me until the next video.